into Gaza after a long blockade.
Children rushed to a place where they'd heard there was hot soup. They scrambled for the scrapings. And most left disappointed and still hungry. If nutritional supplements and food get into Gaza, these children can pull through. But time is running short.
I would like to know, though I'm sure I never will, the name of that little girl in the yellow top and colourful pyjama bottoms screaming in distress, or the baby with the painfully emaciated legs. I'd like to know what their parents, if they're still alive, would say about them or about the trauma of watching a child suffer so badly. I wonder what dreams those parents and children had before the conflict and what dreams they cling to now. I'd like to know more about any of the thousands of Palestinian children killed by Israel over the last 19 months. The Gaza Health Ministry gave a number for the death toll among children this week. Its number is 16,506. It includes 916 infants under the age of 1 and 4,365 children between the ages of 1 and 5. To confront such horror is to be presented with uncomfortable questions. And to be clear, those questions are being asked by some Israelis too. An Israeli opposition leader, Yair Golan, warned just on Monday that his country was on its way to becoming a pariah state. A sane country, Golan said, does not kill babies for a hobby. Now, I've sometimes mentioned here in Rising that I grew up in the north of Ireland at a time when an armed conflict was taking place there. That conflict has many huge differences to what is now going on in Gaza. But I'm often reminded of a phrase we sometimes used back home, a hierarchy of victims. That refers to the unfortunate tendency for media and politicians, and also, if we're honest, all of us, to parcel out our compassion unevenly, to twist our recognition of suffering to fit our preferred political narrative, to suggest that some deaths are more or less deserving of our outrage. Pointing this out is never about downplaying the terrible grief of those who tend to get placed at the apex of that hierarchy of victimhood. But it is to recognise the equally precious humanity of those who get placed below it, so that as we remember the victims of anti-Semitic attacks like Iran and Sarah, we also remember 6-year-old Wadeh al-Fayyoumi, the Palestinian-American boy stabbed to death in a hate crime in suburban Chicago. It's so that when we scrutinise political rhetoric, we hold to account those who target and dehumanise anyone, Jewish or Muslim, Israeli or Palestinian. And so we never forget the people slaughtered by Hamas on October 7th, or the people slaughtered by Israel with the active assistance of the United States government ever since. Is it controversial to say that? Maybe. But it's not, in fact, a false equivalence. It's an act of basic respect.
Well, you put your heart into that. It's hard to get into this topic and not feel exactly what you're feeling. There is just so much widespread death and devastation going on in this conflict in Gaza as a result of the October 7th attacks. And for me, I think my only contention with what you've laid out is there's sort of this competition for empathy. We only have so much to give. And so these two individuals are shot at the Israeli embassy here in Washington, D.C. just a couple of days ago. And the coverage has turned to that because it's odd. It's out of the usual. We haven't seen this kind of thing happen yet, this sort of political violence from the movement, the Palestinian movement here in the U.S., spill out into the streets in this kind of way. And we're covering it. And so there's not some sort of disproportionate coverage going on here of the plight of the Gazans or the Palestinians in Gaza versus Israelis and what they go through. There's just been a pivot. This is a new story. These are people on American soil shot dead. It's sad, and we're going to cover it, and the war is going to continue. It's gone on now for years. There's just so much to cover, and I don't think it's possible for people to actually hold in their hands every single casualty and every single person that dies in a foreign conflict.
Mm-hmm. that idea, I mean, I think that the way empathy works is complicated. And I think that obviously there's going to be a lot of coverage in a double murder that just happened in this city. Now, what I would say is that instances of violence, and I mentioned the young boy who was stabbed by his mother's landlord in Chicago, there was not, to my mind, the same level of soul-searching or outrage about that. There were 3 men of Palestinian heritage shot in Vermont, not fatally to be clear, but shot in Vermont. That story to me seemed to fade from the headlines rather quickly. Now, just briefly or tangentially on the point of accuracy, I'm being told by our control room I said the couple were shot outside the Israeli embassy. If I did say that, that was a mistake on my part. They were shot at a reception. But the point is that I think that overall there is a propensity, and I'm not trying to, as I say, minimize anyone's grief, but there is a propensity to weigh those two griefs of the Israeli side on one hand and the Palestinian on the other.
I don't object to that at all. I think the thing that folks on my side of the aisle, I'm a conservative, have been looking at this and going, this is kind of what happens. You have a Chicago young man who's been involved in a lot of these protests, going to a lot of these demonstrations, shouting the slogans, globalize the Intifada. I think the most on-point analysis of this has been globalizing the Intifada requires this exact kind of thing. Rhetoric does have power. It is dangerous, and we need to be more vigilant of the way that we let people off the hook with these kind of slogans and say, oh, it's a metaphor. It's not a metaphor.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, so The View reportedly told to tone down on their Trump coverage. We're going to be getting into that next. Should be fun.